What's up, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Robbie Cassidy, and today we're going to talk about fitting more mobility into your day and how you can actually start to work mobility routines into your day to get the most out of it. As I was having a conversation with a client of mine during the week, and he was really struggling to try fit everything in because he was at the end of the season that training is really starting to pick up, and then he obviously has other commitments as well outside of that in terms of relationship and having kids and that. And we were looking for ways that he can fit it into his day so that he still gets the most out of it, but it's not taking too much time up. So for this podcast, I want to focus on some of the things that we talked about. And I want to talk about, first off, when is the best time to do it? Then I'm going to go into why do some find it a lot more difficult than others to fit mobility into their routine, and why do some people just pick it up straight away like a duck to water, and why other people really struggle with trying to fit it into their day and actually get the best out of their sessions. And lastly then, I want to talk about how you can fit more mobility sessions or just even more mobility work into your day. It doesn't mean that you just have to get sessions in. There's also other exercises and other things you can do to I guess get it into your day and get the most out of it. So it really depends on why you're doing it, if you're trying to work on certain positions or if it's like an injury prevention thing. And it's going to be different for everybody. So I'm going to try to cover all of those different angles so that once you leave this podcast, you'll have a couple of tips and tricks or a couple of tools that you can start to put into place straight away to start to get more mobility into your day today. So to jump into it, when is the best time to do mobility? With this one, it's probably the first question I always get when somebody jumps on board. And from my perspective now, I work more with injury rehab clients. So their mobility sessions are mixed with rehab as well. So it's strength and conditioning. And the answer I give to this, and I'm sure you have an idea what I'm going to say, is that once you're consistent with it, it doesn't really make a difference when you do it, because you're always, I say, paying it a day forward. So you're always looking. It's like when you get 5 sessions in a row, that's when you start to notice the difference. Now, you will feel good after doing one session, but it's the consistency that really, really adds up. So that's why it doesn't really make a difference if you're doing it morning or evening or afternoon, whenever suits, as long as you're able to get it every single day. Okay. And that's the big one here. I think that a lot of people get lost in trying to, like, some people say, oh, I love to get it done in the morning. And I say, perfect, because you can get it done before work. It's out of the way and it helps you to wake up and kind of transition into your day. Perfect. Others like to do it right before a gym session because they can use it as a warm-up. And I think this is probably one of the easiest times to get it in, because a lot of the time we go to the gym anyway, so you have the time set aside for an hour or 90 minutes in the gym. So if you're there anyway, you may as well just take 10 minutes at the start to go through your routine and get your exercises in. So I find a lot of people, especially as we get into the later stages of rehab, when we're doing a lot more gym work and a lot more strength and conditioning work, will benefit mostly with getting their session in before the gym. At least that way they can group it all together and it's not an issue then when they leave the gym or when they're, let's say in the morning when they're getting up, trying to think about when they're going to do it that day. Then for other people, it could be doing it before or after training. So if you're going for a run, you can squeeze it in there into the warm-up. If you are going and you're going to the pitch, you can do it in the dressing room before. Now, I find a lot of times with this one, you might only do 1 or 2 exercises before because you might not want to go through a 10 or 15 minute routine. But a lot of people have more time after a session where they go back maybe before they shower, while they're still chatting to people, they just trot on the mat and they start going through a couple of exercises and a couple of movements to help to loosen the body up and help them to recover after that session. So as I said, it really doesn't make a difference when you do it, as long as you're consistent with doing it. And it depends on each person. I suppose each individual is going to be different in that it depends on your training schedule, what your work commitments are, what your relationship commitments are. And when you get a small block of time that you can fit in just a couple of exercises, it doesn't have to be crazy. Okay. And I think that leads me into the next thing of why do some people find it so difficult to fit more mobility into their routine when they are doing it? And I think this is a big one in that when people think of doing a mobility session, a lot of them, as I said before, they don't put them together with like a gym session. So they're separating it from their or the rest of their exercise routines. Now, that may be that you go for a run in the morning, or it could be that you're training at night, or you go to the gym in the evening. But if you connect them together and you use it, you use the mobility to benefit the running, or you use your mobility session to benefit your gym session, then it won't be that much of an issue and it won't be that much of a hindrance. It's when you try to do it at separate times of the day and then you're not really connecting it to anything else that you're doing. That's when it starts to get a bit more difficult, because then you're trying to fit it into your day as opposed to it just becoming part of your day. And I think with this one, what you can do, a simple little tip, is just set the same time to do it. Now, I will talk about other tips, but for this one in particular, setting a time of the day that you do it is probably the easiest way to break this barrier, to get over this barrier. And by doing that, it just removes any confusion around when you're supposed to do it, what you're supposed to do, where you're going to do it. If you have a strict time that you get into a session or go through a session, it just makes it that much easier. And it takes away the kind of stress of trying to figure out when you're going to fit it in. So I think setting a specific time to do it is a huge one for people. The next one, I think, is that a lot of people probably look at doing a bit too much. So they look at these really elaborate routines, 30-minute, 40-minute routines that aren't going to be sustainable in their day. Now, if it's okay if you live close to work or if you work from home, that's perfect, because it's that bit easier just to fit it into your day. But if you're commuting to work and then you have to commute home and then you have to go to the gym, it's going to be a lot more difficult to fit in that 30-minute routine in your day then, because of the fact that there's so many other things taking your time up. So for this one, I would say that we need to definitely look at, I think, keeping the routines to a time that's manageable, 10 to 15 minutes. Now, as I said, with my rehab clients, I usually do it for like a 20, 30-minute session, because they're getting back after injury. So that's a huge one, that it's really important that they get other exercises in as well as their mobility ones. Some sessions, they can go up to 40 or 50 sessions, or 40 or 50 minutes long when I want them to go to the gym and I want them to carry out like a push or a pull session. Okay, so it does depend on what your goals are, but in general, 10 to 15 minutes is pretty good. It's a good time to get it in. And if you have everything already laid out, it just makes it that bit easier to transition into it. You don't need to have this crazy routine with all these random exercises where you're scrolling through Instagram and trying to find it, because you might do it the first day and the second day, but that you're not going to keep that consistent. So I think if you just focus on making it as easy as possible, having maybe a set routine that you go through on a day-to-day, then you'll find it a lot easier. Okay, so I think that brings me into the last one of just people don't structure it at all. So they haven't an idea of what they're going to do. Now, for me, I have a good enough idea of enough different exercises that if I'm going through a session, I probably just get one off the cuff about going through a couple of different exercises and trying to flow from one to the next. But for somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing, or for somebody who finds it difficult to chain or to link exercises together, this is one that you'll miss out on. And I think that structuring it before you do it is a great way of doing it. Now, with my own clients, what we do is that we have them, they may do 3 to 4 exercises before a training session. And it could be a consistent one that they do before every warm-up. At least then that removes any of that confusion and idea of trying to figure out what they're going to include and what they're going to take out. If you know that you're doing 4 exercises before a warm-up or before a running session, it makes it so much easier, because then you're not trying to think of all these other things to do. And in general, most people will need to hit certain places, consider certain areas consistently. So having those 3 to 4 exercises that work on your hips, that work on your ankles or your knees, or even just working on your back or shoulder, and using them consistently is a great way of improving your adherence to a mobility program. Okay, so I think that brings me on to the last block, and this podcast, hopefully I'll just keep it short and sweet, and that you're able to take everything away from it that you need, and that you'll be able to just implement it straight away. So how can you fit more mobility into your day? I think the first one is start off with picking 1 to 2 exercises that you do every day. For me, if I was saying to people, I think the inchworm with kickbacks is a great one to start with. Now, if you go on my Instagram profile or my TikTok, you'll see it straight away. It's such a simple exercise to do, and it's a very good full body exercise. And I think it's a great introduction into mobility because it's moving from basically a cobra into a downward dog, and you're walking in, and then you're getting these kickbacks at the end, and they're a nerve glide. And in general, it hits nearly every joint in the body. So if there was one that you were starting off with, I would look to do that one, and then you can, as you get more into it, you can start to isolate different areas and you can focus on different joints. But I think starting off with just 1 to 2 very simple exercises that you can do either when you get out of bed in the morning, at lunch, before you go to bed in the evening, or before the gym, or before a training session, it will make it so much easier because you're not looking down the barrel of this 20 or 30 minute routine that for some people can be a massive hindrance to try get in. So I think that's the first one that we should start with, is just pick those 1 to 2 exercises that are going to work for you and that you can do every single day. The next thing then is connect it to something that you're already doing. And I mentioned this before about training. If you're going to be going to a training session at 7 o'clock in the evening, well then do it at 6:45, okay? In James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, he talks about connecting. To build a habit, you want to connect it to something that you already do, just to make it more sustainable. That way, if you are, as I said, if you're training, it could be what I do for some people is that I get them to do general movements throughout the day. So I will say, every time that you go and boil the kettle, I want you to practice whatever, touching your toes, it could be. Or every single time you brush your teeth, I want you to practice this certain move. Okay, and generally that's twice a day. Most people, or a lot of people, brush their teeth. So when they're there, it's just something that they can be doing while they're doing something that they're going to be doing anyway. Okay, and it makes it so much easier to fit that in. And I suppose the basic one for people listening to this is connected to your training sessions. But if you're looking to just squeeze a small bit more into your day, and this is one of the points that I'm going to be going into, is that like if you're looking to improve your overhead squat, you can do all the isolated exercises in the world, but if you don't actually start doing overhead squats, you're never going to see that improvement. So why don't you just start doing more overhead squats where you're holding basically a dowel overhead or a band overhead and you're squatting down, whether your back is against the wall or you're stepping out from the wall, and do more of those during the day while you're doing your other stuff in a more, let's say, specific time. So before your training session, you're going through a couple of exercises, and then outside of that, you're going through your overhead squats every time you boil the kettle, or every time you brush your teeth, or when you take your shoes off in the evening. Okay, so this is, if you can see now, we're trying to link them together about how you can work either isolated exercises or more general movements into your day. And general ones could be like squatting, bending down, overreaching in certain situations, trying to touch your toes, trying to rotate. It could be arm swings, leg swings, whatever it is, just do more of those, okay? And squeeze more of them into your day every single day. And it will just make it all connect together. It'll make it all so much easier, all right? Outside of that then, I think it's about setting a time to do it. When you're doing your mobility session, have it done at a certain time, 7 p.m., 5 p.m., whatever it is. I've talked about that one already, so I won't go into too much more detail on it, but setting a time really helps people build that habit. And if you want to go a step further, then you look at that implementation intention. And an implementation intention is basically when you say out loud what time you're going to do something, or what you're going to do, what time you're going to do it, and where you're going to do it, and who you're going to do it with. And by saying it out loud, there's a much higher chance or likelihood that you'll actually will do it. And there's a good bit of research back in this. I think it's like a 75 to 80% increase that you will actually do it. So that's a huge one, and it's a simple one, and it's one that anyone can do. Say it out loud, where you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, what you're going to do exactly, and who you're going to do it with. And with that one, then I think the finishing off one is keep it simple. As I said, if you're looking to get better at certain exercises, you need to do those exercises, whether that be squatting, lunging, bending, whatever it is. But try to keep it simple at the start. Once you do that, with your 1 to 2 exercises, where you're actually connecting it to training, when you're like incorporating it into your day, the simpler it is, the better it will be for you. Because I think a lot of people probably, especially at the start, try to overcomplicate it. And if you overcomplicate it, you're not going to stick to it that long, because it's going to take you too much energy. And in general, people prioritize getting to training more than they do their recovery and mobility. So overcomplicating it is just going to make you put it in the drawer, or make you put it in the back pocket. You're not going to think about it again. So I think they're the main ones that I wanted to talk about. I don't want to go on too much more about it, because I don't want to kind of be repeating the same things over and over again. But in general, when's the best time to do it? There really isn't a good time or a better time to do it. It's once you're consistent. Why do some find it more difficult than others? It's just I think they overcomplicate it. They don't set a specific time. They probably think about doing too much. It's too elaborate. They're probably overthinking in their head what they need to do, when they can just keep it so much more simple. And I think, how can you fit more into your day? Pick 1 or 2 exercises. Start with that. Connect it to something you're already doing. Say out loud what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and who you're going to do it with, as well as where you're going to do it. Another one with that is just throw down the yoga mat, so that you know when you come back in the evening it's already there. You don't have to go setting it up. And then make sure the exercises are actually fitting your schedule. So don't try to block it into an already busy schedule. Connect it to something that is in your schedule that helps you to transition into it that much handier. And the last one was incorporate it into your day. So touch your toes, squat, lunge, reach, swing your arms, do whatever it is, but just do it throughout the day, and you'll find that it'll be a lot easier, because you'll be a lot more aware of your body. You'll be a lot more aware of the effect it has in your body, and then as a result, you're going to be more likely to do it consistently. So that is everything from me today, guys. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate. Just send it on to me on Instagram or TikTok, or email me at mobilitytutor@gmail.com. If you have an injury, or if you're struggling with something long term, definitely reach out to me. We can look at jumping on a call and chatting about it in a bit more detail, and seeing if there is something I can help you with. As I said, the majority of my clients are injury rehab clients, and it's nearly always active people looking to get back to some type of sport or activity. So if that's something that interests you, if you're struggling with the same injury, recurring injury, that just keeps coming back and you don't know what to do to get over it, or if it's a new injury that's just been taking a small bit longer than it should, just get in contact. We can jump on a call. You don't have to make any commitment to anything, and we can talk through and see if we're the right fit for each other. Otherwise, if you picked up something from this podcast, I would love if you could share it with a friend, or if you could share it on your story on Instagram, or Facebook. I think you can share on now, Snapchat even if you wanted to. I'd love that, as it really helps to bring more exposure to the podcast, and as a result, the more views or listens I get, then it's a lot easier to get better guests on the podcast. So I am always looking to reach out to guests. If anyone has any ideas of somebody who would be a good fit for the podcast, I'd love if you could send them on to me, and I'll reach out to them, and if they are, it'd be great. I'd love to try out, or try to talk to, I guess I'd love to talk to anyone who would be interested in health, performance, mindset, psychology, anything like that. So definitely send those on to me. But in general, guys, I hope you've taken something away from this podcast, and I will leave it there for now. Also subscribe on Spotify and iTunes. Thank you very much. Have a good one.